Good day, my name is Dawn Numdu. I'm the editor for audience and engagement at Food for Mzansi, and we're back with another episode of Food for Mzansi TV. And I'm joined today by Bianca Viljoen. She's the director for marketing, distribution, and rewards at Agility Agri. And we are still on the Health Squared and Agility Agri Way updates. We've been sharing so much vital information specifically for the future focused farmer, and I'm so happy to have her with me today. Bianca, welcome.
Thank you, Dawn. It's lovely to be here.
So just briefly, a bit about what you do at Agility Agri, how you started, and more about the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you. So Agility has been around for about 25 years. And we've always specialized in creating tailored industry solutions, whether it's for the healthcare industry or the industry in this case. We essentially build both healthcare as well as employee benefit solutions, that works for the industry specifically. I feel like, you can't really put all industries in the same space. Their needs are very different. There's a varying requirement for access to benefits, whether it's healthcare benefits, sort of on primary level, or whether it's top-end medical scheme cover, or even, group life cover, life insurance and disability cover. So we really build everything around fitting it along with the industry firstly, and making it accessible, making it or structure it in a way that makes sense to the industry, as well as gaining a better structure around the well-being and productivity of the employees in the agri sector.
So, I mean, over the past few weeks, we've heard a lot from some of your colleagues about overall well-being and some of the points that you've just touched on. But today, we want to talk about the gap and CoPay cover as part of Agility Agri. Perhaps we could start with that. What is it all about? What does this product range do? And perhaps you can break down some of the benefits that farmers should be aware of and what they can look out for.
Absolutely. So when you take a look at gap cover, gap cover is something that the healthcare industry in South Africa has been very in tune towards over the past couple of years. Now, if you're on a medical scheme, there's a set structure of rules according to which they pay claims. And the moment a provider, any doctor or specialist or hospital, charges fees or rates in excess of medical scheme rates, you're always going to need gap cover. Now, that is essentially, it covers that gap between what your medical scheme has paid and then, what the shortfall is. Now, the thing is, healthcare providers in South Africa are not specifically regulated according to a rate they can charge. They can basically charge literally anything, that they feel their services are worth. So if your medical scheme provides you with cover for 100% of medical scheme rate, that does not necessarily mean it's unlimited. That's a very, very important point. So if your medical scheme states we pay 100% of scheme rate, that's exactly what they'll do. There's a set scheme rate, and that's what they'll pay for services delivered. But that provider that you're making use of, whether it's a GP or a specialist, especially in hospital, they are not necessarily limited to the medical scheme tariff. So they very often charge rates in excess of that medical scheme rate. And that is where gap, for all practical purposes, fills the gap, between the private rate charged by the doctor as well as the medical scheme rate and the amount that they actually paid. So that is the one side of gap cover. Then it's usually combined with what we call CoPay cover. Now, very often when you're admitted to hospital, there's a copayment attached to a specific procedure. Those copayments are generally prescribed by the medical scheme. So it's an admission fee that is either required for upfront payment, or it's required that you pay this amount after you were admitted to hospital. To give you an example, an MRI and a CT scan very often attracts a co-payment, whether it's done in hospital or out of hospital. Now, that co-payment is then usually the client's portion, of that scan that was done. So your co-pay cover then provides you with a rand value benefit to buy it off, basically, to give you cover for that shortfall. So it does contribute a significant amount of value to clients' lives, especially those on medical aid, that if you do have a shortfall, whether it's in hospital or on co-payments in and out of hospital, you don't have that worry at the back of your mind that, gosh, I'm going to be sitting with massive amounts of unpaid claims after my hospitalization. But now, the gap cover provides you with that essentially that safety net to give you access to benefits literally when you need it most.
I think it definitely offers a kind of peace of mind for farmers and agriculturalists within the industry, because I think, Bianca, you'll agree with me that farm life is definitely unpredictable, and accidents can happen unexpectedly. But if you can maybe specifically tell us how this product offers that peace of mind for that unexpected things happening, where you don't have to worry about those co-payments and things that will come on the finer print that they put there that you might not even be aware of.
No, Dawn, exactly. You see, I think people generally have this idea that medical scheme is going to pay for everything. So if you're on a medical scheme, there's always going to be rules and protocols that you must adhere to. And if you're not familiar with those protocols and rules, you're not going to have the best possible access to your cover that's provided by your medical scheme. So take, for instance, you were referring to emergencies or accidents and that type of thing. Now, sometimes, let's take a small incident. You work on the farm or, within the working environment, whether it's in a factory or in a farm setup, but everything around the agricultural industry, whether it's a corporate Agri institute or whether it's a farm, there's always risks for employees. So sometimes medical schemes don't give you a benefit for emergency room access. So if you're admitted to the emergency room and immediately after that you're admitted to hospital, in other words, it's something that's urgent and that's very, very serious, then your emergency room bill will be covered by the medical scheme. But if you just quickly go to the emergency room, let's say someone cut open their finger, and you kind of need to have that seen to and sewed up, that's not something that's going to get you admitted to hospital, but it's just something that's being treated in the emergency ward. Now, that emergency facility is completely outside of the space of the hospital. It's a separate entity. And that bill, if your medical scheme doesn't cover it, is going to be the liability of the member, or sometimes it comes back to the employer. So your gap cover on Agility actually gives you an emergency room benefit that covers those unforeseen events, those emergencies that no one can prepare for. And very often I want to refer back to the fact that you think your medical aid pays for it. There's not always a benefit. And, farmers and employees in the agri sector should always look out and read the benefit schedule, read exactly what you're covered for under what events. If you don't understand it, rather escalate and inquire the detail of cover with your medical aid, because if you don't know, then you're not going to have proper access. So the gap cover, the Agility Gap and CoPay combined options gives you that added emergency room benefit, and that often can result in a benefit of 4,000 or 6,000 Rand, which is a lot of money. So rather top up your medical aid with something that gives you a whole lot more comprehensive cover, especially for these unforeseen emergencies.
I'm chatting to Bianca Falloon. She's the Director for Marketing, Distribution and Rewards at Agility Agri. And I must say, you've given me so much insight, a lot more than, than I expected. And I'm sure that our farmers are also thinking that. But in, the sum of the year, it's festive. People are celebrating, but towards the next year, you want to start planning. I mean that usually happens now as well. You're starting to think about what's going to happen for the next year. And 2020 has been hectic. But the outlook for 2021 seems a little bit better. And so I wanted to ask about if there's specific things that you'll be availing for 2021, specifically around the Health Squared medical scheme benefits options, and what should farmers know, and what are some of the options that are available to them?
Absolutely, Dawn. So, medical scheme, the entire environment and everything around it is expensive. And we find that, generally accessibility is a challenge. You kind of spend thousands and thousands of rands on medical aid cover, and very often not get that value from it, or there's a perceived, gap in terms of what you're getting, in turn for what you're paying for medical scheme cover. So, medical risks, healthcare risks have come to the forefront during 2020, most probably more than ever before. If you're generally a healthy individual, working on the farm and kind of just doing your day-to-day things, and you don't really think about, what am I covered for? No one kind of asks that very pertinent question. So, COVID has brought that back into the spotlight. And, I think people are assessing to a large extent, what am I covered for? Am I properly covered for COVID? Am I properly covered for cancer treatment? My employees that are on medical aid, what are they covered for? These are very specific questions that often is not asked enough. So that is exactly the kind of rationale that we've taken into account when we designed medical scheme benefits for Health Squared going into 2021. So the first thing is affordability. Now, if you find that you can't afford the medical scheme option that you're on at the moment, it's a good thing to assess and to critically look at what other options are out there. There are most probably going to be more affordable plans, but when you do identify a more cost-effective option, make the effort and look at the benefits that you're covered for. So accessibility and affordability are two of the key main points. Now, Health Squared medical scheme has made a concerted effort to build a product range that covers from the entry-level income employees, so your typical blue-collar workers, to make it accessible and affordable to them. So right from the bottom end of the pay scale all the way up to the higher end. So if it's someone who earns a lot of money and can afford more, especially where there's a very specific healthcare need, we offer the entire range. Now, another thing that's very important is that hospital cover is probably one of your most critical points. Day-to-day benefits are great and it's good to have them, but you should take a look to have proper hospital cover. You never know, especially in the agri industry, when a disaster happens, when an accident happens, or even when someone is diagnosed with cancer, that liability and that requirement for treatment is so important. So if, again, not to be caught off guard, but take a look at your benefit options and take a look what you're covered for. So to give you an example, on the foundation option, which is our sort of entry-level plan, there aren't any limits on GP consultations. Now that is, for a fairly low contribution on a monthly basis, that's such a valuable benefit in the agri space. Because as a farmer, as an employer, they have that peace of mind that their employees have access to private medical care when it's needed most. And the fact that there's no limit to that amount of consultations, they can also see to it that the employees, when they fall ill, have access to benefits. They can go, they can see a doctor, get the medication they need, and get better as soon as possible. And that also has a direct impact on the total operation of this farming business or the agri business. And if employees continue to be sick, they don't have access to medication, they don't have access to benefits, it impacts on the bottom line of the farm, on the operational environment, and at the end of the day on production. So keeping your employees as healthy as possible is really an investment into the broader success of the business. So that investment does at the end of the day have a return, because you can quantify it and you can see it in the well-being of the employees. And Health Squared really has done a significant amount of work, to keep it quality, in other words, access to cover, but then also to keep it as affordable as possible. Like some of our options had an increase of 4% going into next year, and some of the options even had a 0% increase, because we understand that, especially in the agri space, there's such a need for access to private healthcare. And yeah, we want to ring-fence and look after the agri industry as far as possible.
I think that was definitely streamlined throughout our conversations over the past few weeks, the overall well-being and seeing it as different parts to this one unit, and that the one can't happen without the other. And once you take care of yourself and the people that work with you on the farm, your overall production and growth of the business really takes you to another level. And
it does. And also interesting, Dawn, is that your employees is probably your most valuable asset. And I mean, farmers invest significant amounts of money into infrastructure, and machinery and technology for the farm. So the investment into your human resource is a significant one, but it's one that pays off, and it's one that definitely contributes towards the broader sustainability of the business.
Couldn't agree more, Bianca. As we wrap up, we're nearing the end of today's discussion. But if you could maybe broadly talk about how the Health Squared medical scheme that you just spoke about, together with the Agility Gap and CoPay solutions, actually benefits farmers, how those two in the long term can actually work well together and actually benefit the farmers broadly, please.
Definitely. So the first answer to that question would be affordable cover. Now, the fact that you are combining, or you essentially integrating more than one healthcare product, actually gives you access to better benefits. So even if you are on a lower medical scheme option, you can always enhance the level of cover at a much lower rate when you add the gap and copay type products. So because we administer all these products on a single technology platform, we are able to, as I just mentioned, ensure better rates, better premiums, but we also integrate claims processes. Now, that may sound foreign to most of the audience out there, but that is such a vital point, that when you come to the point of claiming, when a hospital claim is submitted from the medical to the medical scheme, there's usually a separate claims process that goes into GAP, because remember, GAP cover is in line with the regulatory environment, is a short-term insurance product. So it's not part of medical scheme, it's completely separate. So even though these two products run on different regulatory structures, we integrate them on a single platform. And therein then result an integrated claims process. So to give you an example, if a medical scheme claim comes in, we identify immediately that there's a shortfall, and we inform the client to say that, listen, your medical scheme covered 100% of that rate, as we referred to earlier. There was a shortfall, but you're an Agility Gap and CoPay client as well. So here's your claim form, and then we're going to automatically process that claim as well. So the same applies to co-payments. You know, when you have that admission co-payment, then it triggers automatically. So that is a very unique setup, and we are the only healthcare provider in South Africa to do it that way. And it facilitates a whole lot of advantages. You know, it's easier claims processing. It's not that additional administration that does become the burden of the client at the end of the day. And again, it's peace of mind. You know, apart from the fact that it's affordable and that it gives you a lot more comprehensive cover, you know, it gives you that peace of mind that you're being looked after, and there's kind of someone running your healthcare solution on behalf of you on the back end. And yeah, to bring it to a close, that really is the Agility Agri solution when it comes to healthcare, and you know, very, very specifically built around the needs of the agri sector.
It's quite comprehensive in that way as well, and you sort of find what fits you as a farmer, as a business owner. And I cannot let you go, Bianca, without asking this last question about whether the size of your farm matters. Our audience listening, they farm on a higher level, but there's also people that are just starting out in the industry. So would you say that it matters at all, or can you specifically cater for anyone?
No, definitely. And again, it comes back to, you know, tailoring a solution, especially for the agri sector. So we've defined an employer group, as a minimum of 5 employees. So as long as there's that those 5 individuals grouped together as part of the business or the farm, then we grant it as a group, and we see that as a minimum. So it's definitely something that's achievable by most smaller farmers, and accessible to the majority of the farming businesses out there.
Bianca, I've really enjoyed our engagement today, and I'm sure that everyone listening did as well. Before I let you go, anything that you'd like to add in closing, specifically around the Health Squared Gap and CoPay cover, and just more specifically around that, and then just a message in closing to our farmers?
No, definitely. Again, the investment that a farmer makes into the well-being and the health of the employees does have long-term advantages to the business. So we find that a lot of farmers, you know, see their employees as part of a big family, and we facilitate, you know, that sentiment to a large extent through giving them access to quality care, and affordable premiums, you know, and combining that with a well-being solution. It's something that, you know, that can take the business and the farming environment very, very far. So yes, we hope to support the farmers for 2021 in giving them access to comprehensive healthcare.
Thank you so much. That was Bianca Viljoen. She's the Director for Marketing, Distribution and Rewards at Agility Agri. It was great chatting to you, and everything of the best with the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Dawn. Thanks for having us.